Good morning, everybody. We're just waiting on a few people to join there first before we kick off. I'm just saying there, I noticed the traffic in the city is definitely on the increase in the last week or two. I don't know if you've been in, but certainly there's a bit of a buzz. I see some shutters up now up in Shipquay Street this morning as well. People are preparing. Forward side, people are preparing to get their businesses open. So it's great to see a bit of buzz coming back.
Yeah.
So you're all very welcome this morning. I'm just going to just bear with us for one more minute now. We just get as many people in as we can. For people who don't know me, I'm Paul Clancy and I'm CEO of the Chamber, and delighted that so many of you were able to join us this morning. And the topic this morning is future work, closing the skills gap with apprenticeships. And delighted to have with us today, who are going to be speaking on the topic, is Richard Kirk, who is founder and CEO of WorkPlus, Keith Bingham, who is from AECom, and Jane McGonigal from Atkins, who have all different perspectives to bring in terms of that whole apprenticeship process. I guess this webinar this morning really unpacks the maze of apprenticeship opportunities for employers in Northern Ireland and finding a way through the challenges to achieve a talent pipeline. We will hear from both employer and apprentice viewpoints on the benefits and opportunity apprenticeships can offer, as well as from Richard, who founded WorkPlus to bring apprentices and apprenticeship employees together. So look, it's a really topical one. We were having a chat just before we came on air there. And, with people, the need to retrain and people coming off furlough and different opportunities and the whole distribution of businesses and the whole change of business structure has changed so dramatically over the last 12 months. I think it's a lot of people are talking about apprenticeships, a lot of talking about retraining and reskilling. So I think it's very timely to have the webinar this morning. So Richard, if it's okay, if I could pass over to you and you could kick us off, that'd be brilliant. And we will take questions during the webinar, so please feel free to ask them in the text box and we'll filter them through. Richard will kick us off, and we have some questions that we've already received in advance that we can get the ball rolling with, but please feel free, any attendees who'd like to ask any questions on this very important topic, please feel free to put them into the text box. Thank you. So Richard.
That's great. Thanks very much, Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
That's great, okay. It's just a real pleasure to be with you today. We're so delighted that so many of you could join in, and I have had a background where I worked in Derry for many years as an engineer before I started WorkPlus, so I have a real affection for the city and the surrounding area. And we are just delighted to be with you today. Delighted to be members of the Chamber. We know the good work that Paul and the team do in helping to support businesses. And I suppose what we wanted to do today during Northern Ireland Apprenticeship Week is to really try and help dispel some of the myths that are out there around apprenticeships and give you the chance to hear from an employer of apprentices, in Keith Bingham from AECom, and from Jane McGonigal from Atkins, so who's an apprentice. So we're delighted to be with you today. So I'll just share a few slides which will help us think through this session. So what we've done with WorkPlus is to create a place where employers and apprentices can meet. And the reason for doing that is really because it brings a collective influence. So we're currently working with 65 companies, including AECom and Atkins, that are represented here today. And we've also listed a few others that we're working with, but 65 businesses across Northern Ireland, and helping them to become part of a network that is changing how the culture of their own organization views apprenticeships, because that's important, because an apprenticeship is a job. So we need to start with the employers, and then collectively working together to influence government around the likes of the apprenticeship levy, around the apprentice incentive scheme, which we'll come on to think about a bit more, and also influencing with the training providers, whether that's private organizations, with the universities or the colleges as well, because the companies we are working with want to engage on with a number of different apprenticeship types. and they may need to engage with those different training providers. So let's look at very bluntly, really. The apprenticeship routeway is a good way to bring in new talent to your business, but it also allows you to have significant cost savings when compared to a placement year or even a graduate. You'll see here that if the apprentice is under the age of 24, then you can save on Class 1 national insurance contributions. So right up front, there's a benefit to your business and a real incentive. And then just a few weeks ago, the government here locally, Diane Dodds, the minister, announced that there's an apprenticeship incentive scheme which is being rolled out until March next year. And that's to support each employer that takes each apprentice with £3,000. So for every apprentice you take, it's additional funding into your business to support the development of that apprentice. Should say at this point as well, apprenticeships aren't just at a higher level. At the age of 24, you can be older than 24 and be an apprentice. And the minister is actually bringing forward legislation which would say that apprenticeships of all types will be open to everyone of every age, because she recognises that this is one of the best ways of helping our economy recover from the effects of COVID, by helping people move into new sectors without the debt of having to pay for a qualification to get into that sector. So what we've done with Work Plus is to really try and make it easier for employers to find apprentices. And this year we ran a campaign in January and February. So if you think about it for the applicant's point of view, it's like a UCAS for apprenticeships. It's one place where you can apply to a variety of apprenticeships. 175 were on offer across the businesses that we're working with. And in total, we received 1,450 applications for all those types. What we ask the applicants to do is to take a psychometric test and to indicate which company they would rather work for. So say, for example, they've applied to the civil engineering apprenticeship, they will rank all the companies that want that sort of apprentice, or accountancy firm, accounting one, you'll rank the accountancy firms. That then means whenever the companies come to shortlist, they'll have a better sense of how likely it is that you want to work for that business. Also, location obviously is very important if you're looking for someone local to yourself, and their education background, and also importantly work experience as well. And in some cases, it may be that you need access to a car as well. So we ask those questions of all the applicants. So from the employer's point of view, it's really helping them develop a new talent pipeline. And this is just an overview really of the process. I appreciate there's a lot of detail here, but essentially we're working right in the middle, helping employers find apprentices and also work with the educators, with the training providers. And this is the way that the platform works. Probably just best if I actually just jump out now and show you exactly what that looks like. So if you bear with me for a second, I'll just share my screen again rather than looking at process diagrams, which just don't get people as excited. So this is the platform that the companies in Work Plus use to express their interest in different types. So you'll see here it's very clear about the time frame that we work to. So actually over the last 2 weeks, employers have been starting to make their offers, and it's been great to hear that offers are being accepted and apprentices are going to be registered and in place. That's why we're doing all this. And then if they want to, they can go and browse the apprenticeship types. So what we've tried to do is do something pretty novel and unique, and this is one place where you can view all the different types of apprenticeship that are available. There are 208 in total, and you can go in here as a business and search. Say, for example, you're looking for computing, so you just type in computing and it pulls up the relevant courses. It tells you which training providers deliver those. So let's go for, say, computing level 5, and then it tells you the funding level and what level the apprenticeship's at. We'll come to think about that in a minute. But also, if you want to just say, well, what else do Northern Regional College deliver? It then gives you a full list where you can say, well, actually, yes, we're looking for someone in a customer service role as well. And then we can go in and add that to our demand. That then means that we have an aggregated figure of all the demand from all the companies we're working with. And that means then we can go out to the to the supply side, to the parents, schools, young people wanting to retrain, with a really clear message that 100 apprenticeship opportunities are being created across all these businesses that we're working with. Come and apply through this one portal. So we're trying to make it easier for the applicants and also make it easier for the companies themselves. Whenever the companies come then to shortlist, they'll be able to see in their dashboard all the applicants that have come through. So this is an example we've used here. There are 29 applicants for this business administration. They will be able to filter based on those filters that we discussed earlier. So the aptitude test scoring, which is a percentage score, do they have previous work experience? You can apply that filter, and the 29 becomes 25. So most people do have it. And you can filter down through those and then go in and see the short application, which at this stage is anonymized to try and reduce as much bias in the process as possible. So in that shortlisting phase, that's the process that we run through. You're able to go in and see the candidate. It's all anonymized, as I say, gives you a bit more information about why they want to become an apprentice. Then it gives you their full educational details. You'll note as well, we don't include schools again, just to try and reduce as much bias in the process as possible. And then we also have our aptitude test scoring, which is the score they receive is the number, and then the bandwidth for that particular apprenticeship type is the blue area. So you'll see there where they're performing where you need them to, and maybe in some cases they're much higher. So you can make a decision in a more informed way about their ability and their potential in the job, not just their academic qualifications. So hopefully that's been useful, just to walk through the platform in a bit more detail, and I'll just flick on with it. So what we're also doing at WorkPlus is giving a more increased visibility about apprenticeships in both the media and to society at large. So our mission at WorkPlus is to change how our culture views apprenticeships, the culture within the businesses, but then the culture for the applicants and the influencers that are sitting around that applicant. For me and my wife, who's my business partner, and our other staff team, we are involved in this because we've come from a background of youth work. So I've worked in youth work for 20 years, and I've seen there some of the frustrations that young people have about having information and knowing how to take the next step after school. And then you have, on the other side, my experience in business, where I've heard the frustration about finding new talent. And what we've done is we've created WorkPlus as a marketplace in the middle to try and help both sides find each other in a better way. So we've got some pretty significant media coverage over the last number of years. We had some branding at Belfast City Airport, and we'd love to do the same up in the Northwest as well when the opportunity arises. And we've run events called Meet the Parents, where we have parents of apprentices on a panel, and we invite parents to come along, because we often talk about influencers and about role models. Well, a big barrier to young people becoming apprentices is their parents don't understand what it is. So by having parents of apprentices who have gone down that path already, they can then be really positive influencers for parents of the next generation. We also sponsored the Grammar School Principals Conference, and that was in 2019, whenever they last had it in person. And again, that's just another aspect of what we're doing. Each of our individual members, the companies that we're working with, would not be able to do that, but collectively we can go into that space and start to influence the leaders. And off the back of that, the principal from the largest post-primary school in Northern Ireland approached me and asked me to come and speak to their parents' evening. And I was actually really surprised when I turned up. I thought it was going to be year 14, the ones that were leaving anyway. But actually it was the year 12 parents. He was really keen for us to talk about the potential options of apprenticeships to those who were doing their GCSEs, which risked maybe losing a few people to A-levels. I was really surprised about that, but it just shows how the mindset is starting to change. We also do promotion work out to schools as well. We run competitions, and especially during National Apprenticeship Week, we're about to launch our competition with Madlug, which is a social enterprise that makes backpacks, which helps support young people that are in care. And we're going to be launching a competition later today about that, which can allow us to raise the profile of apprenticeships even further. So we started it really looking into some of the detail. An apprenticeship fundamentally is a job. The employer pays the salary. It's typically 4 days in work, 1 day off the job. We mentioned about the national insurance contributions that you can avoid paying. And there are a variety of different levels and progression that are available. And it's open to existing staff. And I think that's really important to make the point on. The levels of apprenticeship then, there are various levels. There's, I appreciate a lot of detail in here, but when we talk about levels, it's not language that we're really used to. But if you think about GCSE A to C being level 2 and A level being level 3, then that will hopefully give you a good sense of where the apprenticeships sit within this the ecosystem. But you can see that apprenticeships actually are intended to go right up to PhD level. It's not to say everyone who starts at a lower level will get to that level, but it's to say that there's no glass ceiling here, that if you want to, you can progress on different levels. We'll hear a little bit more from Jane later about her civil engineering apprenticeship, but there are, let's say, 208 different varieties. Here are a few more examples, some that you may never have heard of as being apprenticeships before, but it's important that we get the breadth of it out to businesses, and that's what we're keen to talk about today. We have a YouTube channel which is now populated with countless stories from employers, apprentices, school leaders who are telling us how apprenticeships are changing the way in which people get into work and continue their education. And we'll continue to add to that because that gives us the confidence that this is really something that needs to happen. So in terms of some next steps, really, we're working with ACOM and Atkins and other businesses, and we'd be keen to continue to work with more. We will be doing another recruitment campaign in August around GCSE and A-level results days. And then the shortlisting and interviewing will happen at the end of August and offers made in early September, which would allow the apprentices then to start later that month. So that's really, I guess, enough from me. At this point, maybe just hand back to Paul, and maybe we can hear a bit from Keith and Jane, who are the ones who are right in the middle of it.
No, Richard, that was really fascinating, and very simple workaround website there that you have, and in terms of taking people through it. And I love the fact that you had that graph there, just of the picture, a slide showing the pathway that you can start an apprenticeship level and you can work your right way up to PhD if you want to. There's a pathway out of apprenticeships if you wish that. So, and I was just a question I had was in terms of careers guidance and careers guidance teachers. You mentioned about the principals of the schools, but have you an opportunity to meet them as a body? Because I think haven't they got massive influence as well in terms of the direction of students? Yeah,
they definitely do, Paul. And we've looked at the influencers that will shape our young people. And parents tend to come out on top in that respect. And usually it tends to be mum as well. So there's maybe even more specific work we could do there with like some Mumsnet or whatever. So, but there was a report out last week which showed that parents, well, in England at least, have been surveyed, and they've actually come out now and said we would rather our son or daughter go down a vocational route as an apprentice rather than an undergraduate program. So I think there's a real sense of a tipping point, and you can see government investing more and more in apprenticeships, and that's really encouraging to know that. So on the careers teachers, we're really keen to allow, and get involved in the careers teachers networks. We spoke to the Grammar School Principals Conference. There's also a professional grouping for all the careers teachers, and we sponsored and spoke at that as well. And then the Department for the Economy has their career service. We ran a session for them last year, which was well attended. And I think there's a real sense that part of the frustration with a lot of the careers guidance is where do we know? We don't know where to encourage people to go to apply. Is it the training provider? Is it the individual employer? Is it the government website? And I suppose what we're trying to do is listen to all of those partners and try and provide something in the middle which can maybe solve everyone's problems.
And just from a commercial point of view, if say a student applies, do they have to pay? Is there a cost involved along the supply chain here?
So there's no cost involved to the applicant. we are supported by the members that are part of our network, so the companies. There's no core funding from government. We did win 2 DFE Challenge Fund projects, which we've been delivering over the last 6 months, but those were one-offs. There's no core funding for us from government, so it's purely the companies that we're working with are funding the work that we're doing.
Very good, Richard. Look, thanks so much for that presentation.
No
really interesting. Keith, if I could move on to you, then that'd be brilliant. And you're given a perspective, I suppose, from an employer's perspective, and how you've interfaced with WorkPlus and what advantage you've had, and your general experience of the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Happy to talk about it. Just a little bit about us. First of all, we employ about 600 people around Ireland at the moment. So our biggest office is in Belfast. Dublin's a big office, Galway, Cork, and we also have a little office up in Derry. And we have been involved in projects in Derry for the best part of 20 years, using that little office. So we really see ourselves in the middle of that collective influence coming to bear on bringing people into the system, into the education system, trying to work with the college systems locally as well, depending on geography, about what the needs are in particular places, and then playing our part as an employer to try and trying to predict where do we need people to be in the next 5 to 10 years in order that we can start to try and bring people into our business that can help us achieve our mission of being experts and trying to be the best in advising and infrastructure across this island. So for us, we're always trying to learn new things. Even personally, I mean, my career is civil engineering, but in recent years it has moved maybe more towards asset management, and things are not the same as what they were 10, 20 years ago. And it's the same for those in schools at the moment. The jobs that existed 10 years ago are different now, and there are different needs and different priorities for us as an island, as a little Northern Ireland. So I certainly see plenty of benefit to us as an employer, bringing in apprentices, having the opportunity to train them up in the way that we would like them to go, and eventually having those people who will be leaders in the business as well. So it's important to treat them well, because they may be our future CEOs. So certainly something that it's a really exciting time for us working with WorkPlus on this, and we hope to continue it long into the future.
And in terms of the mix, say, do apprenticeships make up a lot of your new starts?
Yeah, we have over the past 5 years really increased our contribution from apprentices to the overall blend of new starts. At the moment, we are about, I think, 5-6% of our workforce would be apprentices. That's in Ireland overall, and with the current batch of recruitment, that will increase that up again. So it's reasonable to kind of foresee in the next few years will be maybe 10% of our workforce could be apprentices. And in terms of fitting that into our overall talent mix, we see that being a very neat complement to our existing engineering staff. An apprentice can come in and work alongside a more experienced senior engineer, and can learn a little bit about the trade, can study at the same time, can bring new things to our teams as well. I mean, we've had we as maybe slightly older people in our teams have been really impressed with some of the ideas, not just technical, but just the team working ethos that some of our new people have brought to our teams. So they do bring a diversity to our workforce that we we only see increasing as time goes forward.
Yeah, just a bit of personal experience I had. I went to the Dublin Institute of Technology. I'm an engineer myself, actually, but I remember that we had, at that time, there were telecom Éireann apprentices. They came into do the degree engineering course, and they were just top of the class. I mean, they brought so much experience with them from their apprenticeship days that they were just like A-class students, and it was amazing, really. They went through that pathway and they ended up in very senior positions in those. So it just shows you the path of development as well, that if you do want to go beyond it, you have a pathway to, and I think Richard touched on it there as well. There's a pathway to growth as well.
Yeah, that's probably one of the minefields that Work Plus have helped us with. You know, the little graph that Richard had there about the pathways and the different levels. You know, that's into the conversation now that we were not informed, or we were not able to make a good judgment on a few years ago, because it is a bit of a minefield for new employers coming into the field. So we certainly see Work Plus as filling that little niche gap for us at the moment, and trying to pull the three core people together. You know, the employers, the colleges, and the people. That's the gap that needs to be filled.
And just before I go to Jane there, she's waiting patiently there, I see there in fairness. Just in terms of approach to it, any tips for employers that you would give, Keith, from your experience so far of working with Work Plus and the whole process about engaging in the whole process? What would be your top tip?
Yeah, in mentoring, let's be employers who want the best for our employees, because apprentices are employees. They're our full-time employees. It just so happens they study as well. So, you know, plenty of encouragement to get involved with the professional bodies. There are plenty of good bodies out there to try and help with that parallel professional recognition alongside the study. And then just plenty of support internally, because like I mentioned previously, who knows that one of our apprentices that currently works in my team may well be a future leader in the business, and
he could be your boss, Keith.
Exactly. So be very careful.
Yeah. Well, look, you'll have done a great job if that's the case. You know, you'll have to be a sign of success. So, but Keith, that's brilliant. Was there anything you'd just like to add before I go on to Jane? I will come back to you again anyway. Okay, well, Jane, you're on mute there if you want to open. That's great, Jane. So look, from an apprenticeship point of view, what's your experience been? If you'd be just to share that with us, and how did you find out about apprenticeships?
So in 2018, I started my apprenticeship, and from then I joined I'm doing my bachelor's in engineering part-time in Ulster University, and I just think it was the best route for me, and I'm really happy with the route I took. And how I found out about it was I attended Northwest Regional College and done a BTEC Level 3 extended diploma in construction, and I was applying for UCAS and was content to go to Queen's and study civil engineering, but one of the lecturers at the college had just said there's this new thing, Work Plus, and you could actually apply for this. It doesn't count as one of your UCAS options, and you may as well just do it. So I'd done it anyway, and I had offers for university and offers for the apprenticeship route, and I just weighed up both, and I just thought the apprenticeship route would be best for me. I just kind of thought I had nothing to lose, and it definitely has worked out well.
Well, that's fantastic. And what's the best part about it, about being an apprentice?
Obviously, having no fees is great, and you have the job from the start. And say whenever I leave university, me and somebody else who's just straight out of university, we have the same qualification on paper, but then I'll have 7 years experience on them. So obviously I'm a lot more employable too.
And just in terms of your own experience, if you were giving tips to employers, what would be your advice there just in getting the best out of an apprentice?
I think they should definitely invest in the mentoring side of it, because if you are able to support the apprentice the whole way through, then it'll really let them flourish and they can live up to their best potential. And then I found for myself, actually being in the workplace, it helps a lot with university work. So if I had a hydraulics module and I was really stuck on it, I could turn to the drainage team to help. Or if I had a structures module I was stuck with, there's a structures team. So making the apprentice feel supported the whole way through is definitely really beneficial for them.
And just in terms of missing out on the full-time, college uni experience there, is that something you miss, or is it you have a different way of connecting with people now through your workplace?
To be honest, I don't feel like I missed out too much. I relocated to Belfast to take up my apprenticeship, so I moved in with people from homes that I was familiar with, but so I was still able to socialise with them and move to Belfast and explore the new city. And then obviously in work I made really good friendships, so I didn't feel like I was missing out in that way. We done loads of social events and after work drinks and all that. And then obviously within university I kind of fell in with other apprentices, which were good to kind of bounce off because they're the only people really that understand, say, juggling your work and juggling your modules. So to be honest, I don't feel like I've missed out. And even friends who see me go through the process can see the benefit of me having a bit of extra money to do these things, but not missing out on social events.
It must take a lot of discipline too, Jane, as well, though, to get that balance right. You mentioned between, because you're working and studying and trying to keep all the balls in the air. You must be quite
just
disciplined.
Good time management, yeah.
Good time management, yeah.
But the degree is part-time, so you're not, say, if you normally done 6 modules in 1 year, I'm only doing 3. So obviously the workload is less, but you just kind of need to put the head down when it comes close to exams, but it's doable, it's definitely doable.
Well, that's brilliant to hear, Jane. Well, look, thanks so much for that. Richard, there's a great example there, I think, of seeing the process from employer down to apprentice there. And I mean, the feedback is very, very positive experience for everybody involved in the supply chain, if you like to call it that. And in terms of the future, how do you see things? How do you see the future outlook in terms of apprenticeship? Do you see the numbers increasing? In what sectors do you feel that there's going to be more potential in, or have you done any analysis on that from a market point of view?
So currently the labour market here needs about 25,000 new people to come in from education or migration, is what they've said, and clearly migration has been hit with Brexit. So 25,000 people are what the labour market needs that they can't find from within their own working population. So currently there are about average between 4,500 and 5,000 apprentices per year that make up that. So you can see that's about 20% of that demand. So there's a huge opportunity to try and grow that apprenticeship supply within that demand that industry has. But that can only be done really by, first of all, by businesses seeing that apprenticeships can be relevant for them. And there are 2 parts to that, really. It's about greater awareness for businesses, and only 12% of businesses here hire apprentices currently. So there's a significant number of businesses that don't. There are lots of reasons for that. Maybe they just haven't thought about an apprenticeship, but as we know, and we know all too well as a micro business, the risk of taking on an apprentice, or the capacity to do so, is harder. The smaller the organization gets. To pick up on Keith's point about mentoring, which is so critical to apprentice success for both employer and apprentice. So there's a need to try and see how can we help more SMEs engage with the apprenticeship system. We've been working, I mentioned earlier about the Department for the Economy's Challenge Fund. We were awarded a research project to explore the idea of a shared apprenticeship. So this is to try and reduce the risk for smaller employers that maybe don't have the capacity or the ability to take on someone full-time as an apprentice, but instead maybe they want to take on someone in a marketing role or an admin role, finance role, maybe 3 days a week. And they would then have that apprentice for that time, and then the apprentice would be with another company that wasn't a direct competitor, obviously, the other 2 days a week. And that's a model which we're researching currently. There's a real appetite for that, particularly within the creative sector. The Chancellor announced it a couple of months ago about flexible apprenticeships in England, and it's something quite similar that we might ultimately have here. But it's about trying to remove as many barriers as possible. As we think about that approach, it's something that I think will help grow the system. But there are larger employers out there that just haven't seen the benefits of apprenticeships. So we're keen to work with those businesses, and we're engaging with many hundreds of businesses to try and help them understand what apprenticeships actually are, because it's ultimately down to the language, and it's a culture thing, which isn't something you just change overnight. But it's examples like Keith and Jane are really important to hear and have their voice in the middle of that, to see that this is a much better way of moving from either school or moving from unemployment into work, getting up, having a reason to use your head and your hands every day, and getting your education alongside that. I think it's part of the message that we've heard over many years with the likes of the foreign direct investment, which is great to see. It really does stimulate the economy. But when those FDI companies land, they're often talking about they're coming for the graduates. They've heard about this skills base, but it's bright young graduates. We need to change that language, because we're just limiting the ability of those companies to grow, because they're only looking at with one lens, and the apprenticeship approach is a much better way of someone getting the education, but also the university of life education as well, because they're learning from people who are, as Jane said, experienced already. But it's not even just the technical things, it's the social side, it's those essential skills about creativity, about working with other people, about dealing with people that you don't really like, but you have to get on with them. It's all those bits that's what an apprentice is learning. And those are the things that will be really valuable right throughout their career. The technical things, as Keith and I can both, and probably anyone can testify to, we all started out as engineers and now we're doing something completely different in a technical way.
Yeah.
But we've always been building on our core and essential skills right throughout that journey, no matter which technical area we were in. So what we're allowing those apprentices to do is to get those skills at a much earlier stage. And they would never get that from university or college, because they're only working with a group of peers, same age group probably, mostly, whereas they're learning so much more as an apprentice.
Yeah, and I guess there is that risk, and maybe Keith can jump in here, that some employers might. First of all, I'm shocked by the 12%. I thought there would have been far more than that, but there you are. It's about, there is a major message to get out there. And then there is the employability, and, Jane can jump in here as well, because if you consider the skills base that individual is going to have after going through the apprenticeship and getting their qualifications, they're very employable at a very young age, compared to maybe somebody who at a university who has like a lot of academic qualifications, but maybe not on the ways of life and the work experience. So I'm just worried, Keith, just from your perspective in terms of retention. What's your experience been of retention of apprenticeships? Do they tend to come along, get trained, and then they say, Keith, thanks very much, you've given us the skills, now we're out of here? Or do you find they tend to stay, or what's your experience?
Well, so far so good, but yeah, there's always that potential. But same as any engineer or someone coming into the business, the onus really is on us as the employer to try and get around that employee. And in this case, we're talking about apprenticeships, but that get around that apprentice, continue mentoring as best we can, build long-term relationships, because I mean, we're really at the back end of our offer stage now on the recruitment drive through Work Plus for this first tranche in this year. But one of the things we were keen to emphasize during the interviews with the apprentices was that this is a long-term commitment on both parties' behalf. So it's the apprentice signing up to in some cases a 9-year program of study and of building up that work portfolio. But at the end of that, there's a potential for professional recognition, and that you may be in a similar level as a graduate who comes in and then builds up that experience in a few years. So it's trying to think from their side. This is a long-term commitment, but also for our side, because we have to support people coming to us long-term, and it's important for us when we try to filter and just try to decide which team is best for which apprentice, based on their interests, on their career progression desires, and their skills that they may learn in whatever course they study in, whether that is through working on water projects in a particular water team, or it's working in strategic planning with the transportation team, or you know, maybe out on site a little bit more. So, you know, it's trying to find that we're probably becoming more mature in the way that we recruit and allocate apprentices now, and that, you know, it's more about trying to get a good fit for the apprentice and the team, rather than just bringing someone in and then allocating them to a team that has need. So yeah, we are in a fortunate position. We can do that. We do have a lot of UK and Ireland and global backing, you know, with a lot of support resources in our company, and a lot of encouragement to keep going in this direction. But appreciate it's not just as easy for smaller employers, as Richard has mentioned. You know, the potential of maybe sharing apprentices is something that maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous initiative to do the investigation on that one, Richard. When do you think there would be any white smoke on that? Is that going to be a decision, do you think, or is that something that you can talk about?
Well, our project ends at the end of May, and we've seen that there is potential in some sectors, especially where it's maybe short-term contracts. So we think, for example, the film industry, which has really grown significantly here, but that is, you know, 9-12-month projects. An employer cannot commit to having an apprentice in for just 9 or 12 months, because an apprenticeship has a minimum of 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's potential there, and then also within the gaming industry, and I know that's really popular in the Northwest as well. There's opportunity there because there's such fantastic jobs out there. Like I just love, you know, being able to, in our work, we get to see across all industries. Right? We've been working with 10 manufacturing businesses, and you wouldn't believe the diversity that there is there. You know, been working with businesses that are making, you know, guitars for Ed Sheeran, businesses that are making pet food. They're making McDonald's French fry containers, wrappers for the whole of the UK and Ireland. And you just have this real pride, I think, in what we're able to do in such a small place. And we just want more people to get involved in that. So our research finishes. It'll be the department's decision as to what they do with that. But I would just say that we are working with 4 arts festivals, and they have collaborated together. So that this is separate to that project, but we've been working on a feasibility study with them, and it's with 4 arts festivals in Belfast, and they are looking at sharing an apprentice across the different festivals, because they see the apprenticeship approach as being really important for them to bring people in, but also to be encouraging people to get into work. But they know individually they wouldn't be able to bring someone on, so we're doing a feasibility study for them, which is to look at the options around all that. So and that's just really come up in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So you can see there's already this appetite out there. And we'll certainly let you know. Hopefully we'll come back maybe in a few months' time, and we can do a session on shared apprenticeships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that 12%, then you could see that increasing as the message gets out there, because I think it is, Keith says, it is the kind of, you're saying that long-term commitment, you know, might frighten, because I know most of our members are in that 1 to 10 employee bracket. Say 50 to 60% of our members are actually small businesses. And you know, it's a challenge when they think of the long-term commitments. They want to honor what they do, but then they want to be sure that they can deliver on that commitment. So this gives them some flexibility. Just coming back to you, Jane, there, just in terms of that mentoring thing, it's clear from what Keith has described too, that's a very important part of how you would choose an employer yourself to work with. In terms of your selection process, was that high up in your list of wants in terms of what they offered in terms of supports and mentoring and path of development, growth and things like that?
Yeah, well, I asked them what support was available. So I obviously knew that I would have a project manager on the project I was working on. I would have a line manager, and then I have a separate mentor as well. So it's someone outside of projects, and it's outside of your direct line management, that if, say, there was an issue with either one of those areas, that you have someone completely separate who's dedicated to support you the whole way through, whether that be through your actual work, your university, or just through guiding you through the apprenticeship program. And then we have reviews with our university as well, who feeds into your mentor, where you have to submit feedback and add attributes, and kind of, so it's that all then gets added towards your CPD to get them professionally accredited. So I feel like there is a real good support network the whole way through. But yeah, I did ask it during the interviews, and I felt that the company that I went for would have supported me more, and they definitely have the whole way through.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. I'm just going to go through just any questions there. I think, Richard, you may have gone back to Catherine there. There was just a question there, parents and children. Yes, I see it there now, and you've reached out there, and she can make contact separately there.
Yeah, I think that was a great question that came in.
Yeah,
which was around support for those who have caring, caring requirements and caring for either elderly parents or for their children. Are there any allowances there? We didn't have anything on that, but we will look into that and feedback.
brilliant.
We just want to try and obviously want to try and remove as many barriers as possible to apprenticeships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Richard, look, I know we're coming close to end time there. I was just wondering, was there anything else you'd like to add in there, just in terms of your initiatives and your recruitment campaign and things that you're doing in the short term?
From our point of view, Paul, we want to see this place having a greater appreciation of apprenticeships, because we've got 200 reasons why. So Jane is one of the 200 apprentices that we've helped find an apprenticeship in the last 4 years. And we just are so motivated by that, and even just chatting to Keith earlier this week about some of the appointments that they're making, and we just can't wait to meet them and to get those apprentices together as a group. We've obviously missed that this last year. We do run networking events for the apprentices, and we look forward to doing that when times allow. But ultimately, it comes down to businesses being involved. And from our side, we're not a training provider. We don't work exclusively with one training provider. So we are keen to work with as many as possible, to provide the companies with as many options as possible when it comes to who delivers the training. So we want to be a positive influence on the apprenticeship system, working with employers, applicants, government and providers to make it just work that little bit better for everybody. And if we can play our role in that, then we'll have done what we set out to do.
Great. So, and Keith, just in terms of the reason you chose WorkPlus, was it the one point of contact from a business perspective, Dave, to get access to that support? From your perspective, was that the attractive element there, that it just made your job easier to match, if you like, needs and what your business needs are to the apprenticeship?
Yes, very, very much so. And I suppose to close, I would put the challenge out there that we as employers, we have foresight of some of the opportunities coming through in the infrastructure realm, and we know what we need in terms of the training for particular people from our colleges. And I suppose that is where the big benefit of WorkPlus has come for us, in that we're able to pull together a group of employers. I think initially there were 30 odd civil engineering employers involved, and that's a unique thing because we're all in competition. But we see the greater benefit of pulling our resources to try and encourage and cajole even the education providers and the overall system to try and get to grips with some of the new things that we need. For example, I mentioned asset management earlier. Northern Ireland is a relatively small place, and why could we not have an asset management apprenticeship where we have a little cohort of apprentices who are just skilled and trying to use the scant funding we have in infrastructure and try and prioritize it best across the entire country. So there's a lot of little things like that where WorkPlus has just filled the gap nicely for us, and we've been able to have that one central place where we can go and try and get people into our business, as well as trying to improve the overall industry as a whole.
Brilliant. Keith, thanks so much. And maybe Jane, the last word to you then. You'd recommend it to your friends? I mean, that's always one of the measures that I always ask somebody. Would you tell your friends to do the same thing?
Yeah, definitely. And even the ones that I'm in university with who are full-timers just can't believe that they missed out on the opportunity. They wish that they could go back and do it. So definitely I would encourage anyone just to even look into it.
Well, look, that's a solid statement to leave on. Jane, thanks so much for taking your time out. Keith and Richard as well for pulling this all together today. It's been really informative, and I suppose the Apprenticeship Week as well is very timely, and really enjoyed the chat. Richard, maybe I'll leave the final word to you there before we wrap up.
Yeah, if there is an interest from any of the training providers that have joined us today to see how we might work together, and for employers as well, we'd be delighted to speak to you. So if you just visit our site, or drop me an email, and we can pick that up, and we can look forward to that campaign in August with hopefully some more employers involved, which gives more opportunities and hope to those school leavers or people retraining as a result of COVID. So we'd be delighted to support you in that.
That's great, Richard. Well, look, I'm going to wrap up here. I'd just like to thank everybody for their participation today. I'd particularly like to thank Richard, Keith and Jane for their time and for this very informative webinar. And if you have any queries, you can go directly to Richard, but if you'd like to come to us or myself and Anna, we'll feed them on to Richard and his team as well. And look, we really appreciate the people who joined the call today, and also the continued support of our chamber, which is really important during these challenging times. So many thanks for joining today, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone.